The night air was heavy with smoke and the bitter smell of alcohol drifting out from the half-broken tavern on the edge of the colony. Men were laughing, the kind of laugh that had no joy in it, only cruelty and mockery. Among them was Joran, a quiet worker who spent most of his days fixing machines in the scrapyards. He usually kept to himself, never joining their games, never drinking with them. But tonight, fate pulled him into their circle. With a roar of laughter, two of the men shoved something forward into the dust at his feet. At first he thought it was an animal, half dead, trembling, left as a cruel prank. But when the shape lifted its head under the dim lantern light, his breath caught in his chest. It was not an animal. It was a girl. Alien girl. Her skin glowed faintly, almost translucent, with strange pale markings that seemed to shift, like faint blue fire under her skin. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, and her body was smeared with blood and dirt. She looked far too young to have gone through such pain, and yet her eyes, huge, silver, filled with terror, spoke of battles. No one should have survived. The men roared again, one spitting at the ground. "Here's your new pet, Joran. A gift. She's useless anyway. We caught her limping after the raid. Thought you might like some company." Their words were sharp, cruel, and coated in laughter. To them, she was nothing more than a broken trophy, a living joke. Joran stood frozen. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He could feel every eye on him, waiting for him to laugh along, to kick her aside, to show he was one of them. But he could not. Something inside him twisted at the sight. She was shaking, her thin arms trying weakly to shield herself, her lips moving as if trying to speak but no sound coming. His heart pounded hard against his ribs. He had seen cruelty before, had seen how this colony treated anything foreign, anything weak. But this was different. This was a living being, breathing, bleeding, abandoned in the dirt as if her life meant nothing. One of the men leaned closer, his grin wicked. "Well, pick her up or leave her there. We'll have a feast tonight." The others laughed again, already turning back to their drinks, losing interest. To them, the joke was finished. But for Joran, the moment had just begun. His hands trembled as he knelt down slowly, ignoring the whispers behind him. The girl flinched as he reached for her, as if expecting another blow. But he only whispered softly, words he wasn't even sure she could understand. "It's all right. You're safe now." He lifted her carefully, shocked at how light she was, almost weightless in his arms, as if she had been starving for days. Her head fell against his shoulder, her breathing shallow but steady. The men jeered, shouting after him, mocking his silence. "Look at the hero. Maybe he'll marry her." More laughter, more cruelty, but Joran did not answer. He turned his back on them and walked away into the darkness, carrying the fragile stranger against his chest. The streets were nearly empty, silent except for the hum of broken lights and the rustle of night wind. Every shadow felt dangerous, every sound too sharp. Joran knew he was making a choice he could not take back. If anyone saw him sheltering her, questions would come, soldiers would come. And the men he left behind, drunk as they were, might sober enough to realize their joke had turned serious. Yet as he carried her through the narrow alleys, he knew he could not have left her. Not with them. Not in the dirt. At his small home on the far edge of the colony, he laid her gently on the thin bed. She stirred weakly, eyes flickering open for a second, silver light meeting his human gaze. Her lips parted, but only a faint sound escaped, like the beginning of a word. Then she collapsed again into silence. Joran swallowed hard. He had no medical skills, no advanced tools, only the scraps he used for repairing machines. But he began working with what he had, boiling water, cleaning cloth, wrapping her wounds as best as he could. His hands shook, not just from fear, but from the strange weight pressing on him. Who was she? Why had they given her to him, and what danger followed her here? As he worked, he noticed it. The faint glow under her skin wasn't fading. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, almost like a message. Strange markings along her arms seemed to shimmer when he touched them, responding to his presence. His chest tightened. This girl wasn't ordinary. She wasn't just some helpless creature tossed aside. Something lived inside her, something powerful, something that might be the reason she was bleeding in his home instead of rotting in a ditch. Outside, the laughter from the tavern had died. The night was quiet now, too. Quiet. Joran felt the hairs on his neck rise. He moved to the window and looked out at the empty road. For a moment, he thought he saw a shadow move at the far end. Someone watching his house. His grip tightened on the window frame. If the men who mocked him decided to return, or if soldiers came asking, he would have no excuse, no defense. And yet, when he turned back and saw her lying there, breathing shallowly, the choice remained clear. He couldn't give her up. Not now. As the night deepened, Joran sat by the edge of the bed, his mind racing, his eyes locked on the alien girl who had fallen into his life as part of a cruel joke. Yet nothing about this felt like laughter anymore. Something in his gut told him that this night was the beginning of something larger, something dangerous. And when her lips moved again in her restless sleep, whispering a sound that almost formed into a word, he felt his chest tighten. Because whatever that word was, it was not human, and it was not meant for anyone but him. The girl stirred before dawn, her body trembling as though caught between fever and nightmare. Joran had not slept. He sat slumped in a chair beside her bed, his tools scattered on the floor, his hands still stained from wrapping her wounds. When her silver eyes opened again, clearer now than the night before, he felt his chest tighten. For a moment, the world seemed to still her gaze, locking onto his, filled with something he could not name, fear, pain, and something else. A plea, her lips parted, and this time sound followed, soft, broken, and shaped in words that were not his own. Strange tones clicking and flowing like water. He did not understand them, but the desperation in her voice made his heart race. Then, as if struggling to remember, she tried again. Her accent was jagged, every word strained, but it was English. Please, help me. Joran swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry. He had imagined she might speak, but hearing her beg in, his own tongue was different. She was not just some half-dead stranger. She was aware. She understood him, and she needed him. He leaned closer, speaking softly. You're safe here. I won't hurt you. He wasn't sure she believed it. Her hands clenched the blanket tightly, as though expecting it to be ripped away at any second. Her eyes shifted, scanning the small room. The walls patched with rusting metal, the shelves filled with spare parts. She looked like she didn't understand how she had ended up there. Slowly, she raised her arm. The faint blue glow beneath her skin flickered brighter, the strange markings lighting up like veins of fire. Joran stiffened, uncertain whether to back away. But instead of harming him, she pressed her glowing hand weakly against his chest, right over his heart. Safe? She asked, her voice trembling, searching his face. Joran froze, his breath caught in his throat, but he could feel the faint warmth of her touch, a pulsing rhythm that almost matched his heartbeat. It's something about... It felt like trust. Fragile trust. He nodded firmly, though his voice wavered. Yes, safe. She pulled her hand back, her body sagging with exhaustion. But relief flickered in her silver eyes, even if only for a moment. Then her voice broke again, softer this time, almost a whisper. They will come. Soldiers, they will kill me. The words chilled him. He had suspected danger, but hearing it confirmed was different. He leaned back, rubbing his forehead, his mind racing. Why? Why would they kill you? Her lips trembled as she tried to form an answer. Widow. Alone. Alone. She struggled, frustrated by her own broken speech. They say, I must not live. They, afraid. She looked at him with such raw terror that he understood without needing the details. Whoever she was, whatever her people were, someone powerful wanted her gone. Joran's stomach twisted. He thought of the men at the tavern, how they had laughed. As they tossed her at his feet, he thought of the shadow he had seen outside his window. If soldiers were already searching, if the colony was complicit, then keeping her here would not just endanger Hurt, would put him directly in their path. Yet as he looked at her again, fragile, trembling, Clutching the blanket as though it was her last shield, he knew he had no choice. The decision had already been made the moment he carried her away from that tavern. She had been left in his hands as a cruel joke, but now her survival depended on him. He tried to speak calmly. "You need rest. Food, water, I'll help you, but you need to trust me." Her silver eyes shimmered, and for the first time he thought. He saw something beyond fear, something like hope. She nodded weakly, though her hands still shook. "Trust," she whispered. Jorran stood, pacing the small room, trying to think. If soldiers came searching, his flimsy door would not hold. His walls would not protect her. The colony had no love for outsiders, especially not wounded alien widows glowing with strange power. He had to make a choice: hide her better or find a way out before anyone came knocking. He looked back at her, noticing how she clung to the edge of the bed as if afraid he might disappear. His chest tightened again. She wasn't just a stranger now, she was a responsibility. That, and more than that, her presence carried something heavy, something that felt larger than either of them. The night's silence was broken suddenly by a sound. A sharp knock. Not gentle, not hesitant, heavy, demanding. Jorran froze, his heart slamming against his ribs. The girl's eyes widened in terror, her glow pulsing wildly beneath her skin. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, whispering, in a panicked voice, "Please, don't let them take me." The knocking came again, louder, shaking the weak door. Then a voice followed, cold and stern. "Open up, Jorran. We know what you're hiding." His breath caught. They had come sooner than he expected. He glanced at the girl, then at the door. His mind raced. If he opened it, they would see her. If he didn't, they would break it down. He was trapped between fear and resolve, between survival and something he couldn't quite name: a duty. Perhaps, or simply the refusal to be as cruel as those men had been. The girl's trembling fingers dug into his arm, her silver eyes locked on his face. "Please," she whispered again, voice breaking, "don't let me die." The knocking turned into pounding. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. The voice outside barked louder, angrier. "Open the door, or we break it down." Thundered. He had seconds to decide, and whatever choice he made would change everything. The pounding grew louder, each strike against the fragile wooden door echoing through Jorran's chest like a war drum. Dust fell from the ceiling, rattling the shelves. And the girl on the bed pressed herself against the wall, her glow flickering erratically with her fear. Jorran's every instinct screamed at him to run. But there was nowhere to go, not with her injured. Not with soldiers already at his doorstep. He grabbed a wrench from his workbench, his knuckles white as he held it like a weapon. His voice was low, hurried, barely steady. "Stay quiet. No matter what happens, don't make a sound." The girl's silver eyes locked onto his, wide and filled with desperation. But she nodded. The pounding stopped suddenly. Silence. It was worse than the noise. He could hear the men breathing outside, hear the creak of leather boots shifting on the porch. Then the voice came again, sharper, more commanding. "Last chance, Jorran. Open the door. We burn your shack down with you inside." His pulse roared in his ears. He pictured the flames, the smoke, the girl trapped within. His throat tightened. He didn't have time to think, only to act. Moving fast, he pulled a loose metal panel off the back wall. Beyond it lay nothing but the dark. Wasteland stretching toward the hills. It wasn't safe, but it was the only chance. He turned to her. "Go. Crawl through now." She shook her head frantically, her body trembling. "Too weak. Can't." Her voice cracked. "Don't leave me." Another crash hit the door, splintering wood. Jorran cursed under his breath. He didn't have the strength to carry her far, not with men seconds from breaking in. His mind raced, searching for anything that could buy them time. Then he saw it. The old generator in the corner, its wires frayed but still alive. If he overloaded it. He moved quickly, shoving tools aside, his hands flying over. The wires. The machine began to whine, sparks snapping. The girl stared at him, confused and afraid. "What doing?" she whispered. keeping them out, he muttered, for a little while. The door cracked open with a groan of tearing. Wood? A soldier's boot forced its way inside. Joran yanked the last wire free, and the generator screamed, then exploded in a burst of light and smoke. Electricity surged through the shack, slamming into the doorframe. The soldier cried out as sparks erupted around him, throwing him backward. Into the night. The others shouted in alarm, stumbling back from the sudden blast. The air smelled of burning metal and ozone. The girl gasped, her glow brightening as though responding to the energy. For a moment, the shack was filled with the eerie light of both machine and alien flesh. Joran grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the opening in the back wall. Now move. She hesitated only a second before crawling through, her body weak, but desperate. Joran shoved her forward, then squeezed himself through after her. They stumbled into the night air, the wasteland stretching before them. Behind, the soldiers were shouting, regrouping, their torches flaring. Find another way in. Don't let him escape with her. One of them barked. Joran pulled the girl to her feet, half dragging her as they moved into the shadows of the scrubland. His lungs burned. His legs screamed with every step, but he didn't stop. The girl clung to him, her breath ragged, her glow dimming as exhaustion overtook her. They reached a small outcrop of rocks, enough to crouch behind. Joran pressed her down gently, trying to steady his own breath. From their hiding place, he could see the soldiers swarming his shack, their weapons gleaming in the firelight. One of them turned, scanning the dark with a harsh beam of light that swept dangerously close. The girl gripped his hand tightly, her voice shaking. They won't stop. They want me dead. Joran's jaw tightened. Then we don't let them find you. Her silver eyes searched his face again, fragile hope flickering in them. Why? Help me. The question hit him harder than the chase. Why? He could have left her in the tavern, could have handed her over at the door. But when he looked at her now, bruised, terrified, yet still clinging to life, the answer was clear, even if he couldn't put it into words. He simply shook his head, because no one else will. The girl leaned weakly against him, her glow pulsing faintly in the dark. For a fleeting moment, the chaos around them seemed distant. But then, the soldiers' voices rose again, closer now, moving through the scrub. Dogs barked in the distance. They were hunting. Joran tightened his grip on the wrench still in his hand. The girl's trembling fingers clutched his sleeve. There would be no rest tonight. Only running, hiding, and fighting for every second of survival. And deep inside, Joran knew this was no longer about chance or pity. The cruel joke had turned into something else entirely, a battle he could not walk away from. The wasteland stretched before them like a graveyard of forgotten worlds. Endless hills of ash-colored stone and jagged cliffs where the wind howled. Like a predator's cry, Joran and the girl staggered forward, their breaths ragged, every muscle screaming for rest, yet rest was impossible. Behind them, the soldiers' shouts grew louder, carried by the night wind and the glow of torches. Flickered against the horizon like fire chasing prey. Somewhere far back, dogs barked, their snarls sharper than knives. The girl stumbled, nearly collapsing into the dirt, but Joran caught her under the arm and pulled her back up. Her skin burned with fever, her glow dimmer than before, and every step seemed to drain the last drops of strength from her fragile body. "I can't," she whispered, her voice barely more than air. "Leave me. Save yourself." "Not happening," Joran growled, pulling her forward. His lungs were fire, but his grip never loosened. He wasn't about to let her become another body tossed aside in this cursed world. He didn't know why, only that the thought of abandoning her twisted something deep inside him. A sudden flash of light streaked across the rocks near their feet. A plasma bolt sizzled, exploding into shards of stone. The soldiers had spotted them. Another shot followed, striking a boulder inches from Joran's head. He ducked, dragging the girl down behind the jagged rocks. Dust filled the air as the wasteland lit up with deadly fire. "They'll corner us," the girl murmured, her trembling fingers clutching his sleeve. Her silver eyes, dim but determined, met his. "They won't stop until one of us is dead." Looked out from the cover, scanning the landscape. Ahead, The rock sloped downward into a deep ravine. It was dangerous to steep, too sharp, but it was their only chance. If they could make it down, they might vanish into the shadows, at least for a while. "Hold on," he muttered, lifting her carefully onto his back, despite the ache in his shoulders. She was light, far too light, her bones fragile against him. With each step, the ravine grew closer, the soldiers' shouts louder, the shots more accurate. The dogs' howls split the night. Joran slid down the rocky slope, stones tumbling beneath his boots. Pain tore through his hands as he clung to the jagged edges, trying to control the fall. The girl clutched his neck weakly, her faint glow barely visible against the darkness. It hit the bottom hard, dust and gravel rising around them. Silence for a moment. The ravine walls shielded them, but above. Torchlight flickered as soldiers leaned over the edge, their voices sharp and furious. They went down. After them. Joran pulled the girl deeper into the ravine, weaving between shadows and broken stone. His chest heaved, his mind racing, every nerve on fire. They wouldn't last long like this, not unless he found shelter or a miracle. Then he heard it. A faint hum beneath the earth, mechanical, old, familiar. His eyes darted to a half-buried metal hatch tucked against the ravine wall, rusted but intact. He hurried forward, prying at it with his wrench until it creaked open. The air inside was stale, metallic, but it led downward into darkness. Inside, he whispered urgently, lowering the girl through. She hesitated, her silver eyes wide, with fear of the unknown, but the sound of boots crashing down the slope left no time to argue. She slid into the dark, and Joran followed, pulling the hatch closed above them just as beams of light swept across the rocks. Inside, the darkness was thick, but the girl's faint glow revealed ancient walls of metal. Pipes ran along the sides. Dripping with condensation, the hum grew louder. It wasn't just a hiding place, it was something else. Something forgotten. The girl leaned weakly against him, her breath shallow. What is this place? Joran's hand traced the walls, his heart pounding with both fear and curiosity. I don't know, he whispered, though part of him already guessed. This was no ordinary shelter. It was a remnant of the old wars, one of the buried bunkers. Built before the wasteland became what it was. Above them, soldiers shouted, their voices echoing against the ravine walls. The hunt wasn't over. But for the first time since the cruel joke had begun, Joran felt the smallest spark of hope. They were no longer just running. They had found something the soldiers hadn't, and that meant for tonight at least they still had a chance. The air inside the bunker was heavy, thick with dust, and the faint smell of oil that hadn't touched air in decades. Joran coughed as the echo of the closing hatch faded behind them. The girl's faint silver glow illuminated the narrow corridor. Ahead, casting shadows along walls that looked like they had been built for war. Pipes hummed faintly, carrying energy from some unknown source. And faint red lights blinked weakly, like tired eyes refusing to close. Where are we? The girl whispered, her voice trembling. She leaned against him. Her body weak, but her eyes filled with wary curiosity. Joran brushed dust off the wall with his calloused hand. The surface was etched with faded symbols, human military. Markings from before the world had collapsed. His pulse quickened. An old war bunker, he muttered. I'd seen one of these in years. He hadn't even believed many still existed. Yet here it was, buried in silence and shadow, holding secrets long forgotten. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. Joran froze as the dim light revealed the outlines of machines' rows of consoles, storage crates, and a huge door sealed, with heavy locks. Dust lay thick on everything, but some of the machinery hummed faintly, like it had been waiting. The girl shivered, her glow flickering. This place, it doesn't feel safe. Neither does being out there, Joran replied. Though he shared her unease, he lowered her gently onto a crate and scanned the room. His mind raced. Why was the power still running after all these years? What could still be alive down here? Then he noticed a small terminal, its cracked screen flickering faintly. He brushed, The dust off, and the screen came alive with lines of static text. The system asked for a command. Joran's fingers hovered over the ancient keys before he slowly pressed one. The hum of the room deepened. Lights flickered on across the chamber. Panels lit up. The sealed door hissed as its locks released with a heavy click. "Wait, don't." The girl whispered urgently, struggling to her feet. "You don't know what's inside?" But the door was already moving, grinding open with the sound of metal on metal. Cold air spilled out, carrying the stench of rust and something else. Something sharper. Like burned metal and ozone. Beyond the door lay another chamber, larger and darker. Joran stepped carefully inside, the girl clinging to his arm. The floor was lined with long sealed containers stacked against the walls. Some were broken, their glass shattered. Others remained intact, mist swirling inside. Joran's stomach tightened. These weren't storage crates, they were pods. The girl gasped, clutching his sleeve tighter. Her silver eyes widened. These aren't human," she whispered, her voice trembling with recognition. Joran leaned closer to one of the pods.
Inside.
Barely visible through the mist was the outline of a figure, not human.
Not like the girl, but something in between.
Its body was thin, its skin pale and ridged, its face masked by breathing apparatus. Joran stumbled back, his heart hammering. The console beside the pods flickered to life. Its display scrolling data in an old human script spoke of biological projects, of hybrid experiments. Joran felt sick. This wasn't just a bunker. It was a lab. A secret from the old wars where humans had tried to merge themselves with alien DNA. The girl's hands shook as she stared at the pods. They tried to make more of us, not born, but made. Her voice cracked, pain flashing in her eyes. "That's why they hunt me. They think I'm one of these mistakes." A loud crack echoed behind them. Joran spun, pulling the girl closer. The hatch above rattled violently. Voices shouted. The soldiers had found the bunker. "We can't stay here," Joran muttered, scanning the room desperately. His eyes darted to the far side of the lab, where another tunnel stretched downward, its lights dim but still functional. "There's another way out. Come on." But before they could move, one of the pods hissed. Steam vented from its sides, the glass fogging. Joran froze as a shadow shifted inside. Then the glass cracked, a jagged line spreading across the surface. The girl's grip tightened on his arm. "Something's waking up," she whispered, her voice trembling. And above them, the soldiers' boots thundered closer. They weren't the only ones about to face what slept in this bunker. The pod shattered with a deafening crack. Shards of glass scattering across the floor as a rush of cold mist filled the chamber. Ruin shielded the girl with his body, squinting. Through the haze, from within the broken pod, a figure rose taller than him. Its frame gaunt but powerful, skin pale with strange ridges that caught the dim light. Its chest heaved as it drew its first breaths in decades, tubes snapping loose from its body. Its eyes opened, glowing faintly with an alien hue that sent a chill down Joran's spine. The soldiers' shouts grew louder above, metal boots clanging. Against the bunker's hatch, they were seconds away from storming inside, but now the greater danger stood directly before him. The creature stepped out of the pod, its movements jerky but fast, like a predator relearning how to walk. It scanned the room with a gaze that felt both hollow and furious, then fixed its glowing eyes on the girl. She gasped, stumbling back. "It's like me, but not. They built it to replace us." Her voice cracked with terror and sorrow. Joran raised his weapon, his pulse racing. He knew one wrong move could end them both. The creature tilted its head, then let out a low hiss that reverberated through the chamber. At that exact moment, the bunker hatch above burst open, and soldiers flooded in, their rifles aimed. "Step away from the asset." One of them barked, eyes locked on the girl. But the creature turned, sensing them, and with terrifying speed it lunged. The first soldier didn't even scream, just flew across the chamber, slammed against the wall with bone-cracking force. Chaos erupted. Gunfire filled the air, echoing violently in the metal chamber. The creature moved like a blur, shrugging off bullets as if they were nothing, tearing through the soldiers with monstrous strength. Sparks flew as stray shots ricocheted. Off old machines, alarms blaring to life. "Joran, we have to run," the girl cried, pulling at his arm, but Joran hesitated, his eyes darting between the slaughter and the tunnel on the far side of the lab. They fled now, the soldiers would de-end, the creature would be free to hunt. But if they stayed, they might be killed in the crossfire. The girl looked at him, fear and trust mingling in her silver eyes. "You saved me when no one else would. Please, don't let it end here."
Ow.
Joran's jaw tightened. He turned his weapon not on the soldiers, but on the control console beside the pods. If these machines kept it alive, then maybe they can kill it. He squeezed the trigger, bullets tearing through the panel. Sparks erupted, systems screaming as power surged out of control. The remaining pods exploded one by one, fire and steam filling the chamber. The creature let out a roar of pain, staggering as energy arced through its body. It turned its burning gaze on Joran, enraged and charged. Joran braced himself, but the girl stepped forward, her glow blazing brighter than ever. She raised her trembling hands, and the light poured from her like a storm, wrapping the creature in searing brilliance. It screamed, its body thrashing violently, until finally it collapsed in a heap. Smoke rising from its broken form, the soldiers, shocked and terrified, backed away. Some dropped their weapons and fled through the hatch, others simply stared at. The girl, whispering in disbelief. Silence fell. The chamber flickered with failing lights. Joran panted, sweat dripping down his face, his ears still ringing from the chaos. He turned to the girl. She was pale, shaking, but alive. Her glow faded, back to a soft shimmer as she met his gaze. You stopped it," Joran whispered, barely believing what he had just witnessed. She shook her head weakly. "No, we stopped it. Together." The remaining soldiers retreated, fear outweighing their orders. Soon, only Joran and the girl remained. In the ruined lab, surrounded by the wreckage of humanity's darkest secrets, Joran reached for her hand, steadying her. "This isn't over. They'll be back. Next time they'll come for you." Her grip tightened. "Then we'll be ready." And as they stepped into the tunnel, leaving the broken bunker behind, Joran realized the cruel joke that had begun. This all was no joke at all. It was faith placing him in the path of a girl who was never meant to survive, but who just might be the key to changing everything.